Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on getting the critical questions right. I'm Piyush and I'm from GMAT Viz. I'll be your co-host in the webinar today, and the webinar is gonna be really interesting as we're gonna take up some of the very important question types in critical reasoning, which is inference, paradox, and boldface. So a warm welcome to all of you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on wherever you are. And this webinar is gonna be really interesting. You're gonna learn a lot of tricks and tips today, so please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us about you, who you are, where you are from, if they're facing any challenges, what are the challenges that you're facing in critical reasoning. And I hope all of you can hear me loud and clear. If you're facing any challenges with the audio, do let us know. But hopefully the audio will be great to you. So very warm welcome to this webinar. I already see about 14-15 people have joined the webinar. So let me quickly get started. And as I said, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your problems that you face, and we'll definitely try and help you. I'll quickly tell you about the host today. So the webinar is going to be hosted by Sunita. Sunita is a senior subject matter expert in verbal. She has over 13 years of experience mentoring students in verbal, and she has taught more than 10,000 students. Honestly, I have been her student myself, and she's one of the best faculties, verbal faculties, that I've seen in my entire career. She excels at understanding student problems, simplifying the questions, and trust me, I've seen many verbal experts, and most of them go by this rule that, okay, if I'm saying this is right, this is right. But she basically goes to the level where she can actually help you understand that how can things be simplified and made very logical. So she is great at it. She has helped thousands of people get to their target scores. Very recently, she has helped people go from a 520 to 760 as well within 3-4 months of time. So she is that great. And in this webinar, she's gonna talk about her experiences, and she's gonna tell all those things on critical reasoning, especially for these three areas. So let me quickly tell you about the agenda of this webinar. In this webinar, we're primarily going to look at inference, boldface, and paradox questions. So we are going to solve about 4 or 5 questions on this. And our objective is not to help you solve just these 4 or 5 questions. Our objective is to help you understand how can you solve any inference, boldface, or paradox question. That's going to be the main agenda for the webinar today. And while doing this, we will also help you understand what is the recommended path of learning for the verbal section, because many people don't follow the right path of learning. They end up struggling with CR, but the problem lies elsewhere. So we will help you understand that part as well. We will help you also understand, as I said, the correct way of approaching CR questions. Because it's not about just the 4 or 5 questions that you're going to solve. It's more important that you learn how to solve any CR question using the right methodology. That's something we are going to talk about. And then we finally will help you understand what to do to master the correct approach. Okay, you understand what is the correct approach, but how can you master the correct approach during your prep time so that you can get it to the maximum outcome possible? Okay, so it's going to be really interesting. Sunita is going to be your main host. I'm just your co-host. I just wanted to introduce things for you. But before we get started, we have a very important quiz for you. A quick trivia around some important questions around GMAT verbal that we're gonna share with you is gonna be in form of a quiz, and you guys are gonna see a lot of interaction happening around this. We will help you learn some very important things through this particular quiz, this fun quiz. Okay, so open your mobile phones and open this website kahoot.it. Okay, just go to your mobile browser, open this website kahoot.it, kahoot.it, and once you open it, it will ask you for a game pin. Just make sure you enter this game pin, which you can see on your screen, which is 3527328. So please open this and just type a yes once you are able to open this and enter the game pin. And we will then start with a short, quick, rapid fire 5-question quiz where we're going to give you one question and you will have 20 seconds to answer that question. And we're going to show the live results in front of you once you're done with that quiz. Okay, and we're going to learn some really interesting things about GMAT verbal, GMAT critical reasoning from this. Okay, so give it a thumbs up here as soon as you are able to open this. Kahoot.it is the website, and then you have to simply open this game pin, and then we will quickly start the quiz. Okay, Samvit says yes, I am in. Okay, great, Samvit. What about the others? And let's see who wins the quiz, because this is gonna be an interesting quiz. We are gonna see some winners as well. Let's see who knows the best. And the idea is to learn and have fun at the same time. Okay, Ravi says I'm in as well. Great, Ravi. Who else is in? Okay, Connor says I'm also in. Great. Okay, what about others? Pavan, great. Happy to see you there. Okay, Satyavata says Champion Snail is my name. Okay, great. Let's see, Satyavata, where you end on the leaderboard. Let's see. We'll have final winners here. So let's wait for another 30 seconds, I guess, Abhijit, and then we can probably start with the first question. Deepak is also in. Great, guys. I think we have around 14 people in the quiz. That's what it shows, I guess. But there are 40 plus people in this webinar, so I guess more people are joining. So those who are still joining, ensure that you open your mobile, open this website, kahoot.it, kahoot.it, and then it will ask you for a game pin. Just enter this pin 3527328 in that. Okay, I see 17 people are in here. Ravi says my ID is Clever Boa. Okay, great. So I see a lot of people already here. Yeah, Satyabata, it's gonna be really fun. We are gonna learn a lot through this fun exercise. Okay, guys. I see almost a good number of you are in. I hope those of you who are still typing in, we are ready to go. So here's the first question in front of you. It's by GMAT Wiz. So it's gonna be there live. You have 20 seconds to answer it. All the best, guys. So the question is, how many CR questions typically one gets on the GMAT test, actual GMAT test? Is it less than 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, or more than 15? Just put the right answer in your apps. I see 7 answers are already done. Okay, time runs out now. Okay, so it seems that only 4 of you have gotten this question right. Abhijit, just stay here for a moment. So typically on GMAT, most of the people, when I say most, more than 95% of the people end up getting anywhere between 11 to 15 questions on critical reasoning. That's the broad range. The mode is generally around 11 to 12, but very few people end up getting 15, or very, very, very few people end up getting less than 10 or 10. Okay, so most of the people will end up getting 11 to 15. That's the right range, and I see only 4 of you got it right. But let's still go. You have time for the next question. So let's continue going on further. Okay, balanced in. Great, Muzaib, you were the second. Okay, so this is the question in front of you. Getting a bold-faced question means you're performing exceptionally well in the verbal section. Is it true? Is it true but not always? Is that a myth? Or you don't know exactly? Pick your answer, guys. You have 5 more seconds. Okay, great. So the correct answer is true, but not always. The reason for that is, generally, if you get a bold-faced question on CR, that basically means you're doing well on the test, but only if that question is a scored question. Because remember, there are some cases, very few cases, in which a bold-faced question can also be an experimental question. If it is an experimental question, we cannot really know whether we are doing well or not. So in general, it's a good sign, but not always. So that's the right answer, guys. So I see Charming Hawk is leading the board, Balanced in the second one. Okay. The game pin is visible on the bottom right. Khushbu, you can see. Which question type is most commonly tested in critical reasoning? Is it assumption? Is it inference? Is it strengthen and weaken? Or is it evaluate? You have 5 more seconds, guys. Please quickly put in your answers. Okay. Great. So 13 people have answered this. Great. So Khushbu, the pin is 3527328. Okay, so yes, so I see most of you have got this right. So great, guys. Strengthen weaken is actually the most commonly tested question. In fact, strengthen is slightly more like strengthen is probably the most commonly tested. It's more commonly tested than weaken, but again, sometimes weaken wins the battle. So strengthen weaken combined is the most common question type, and you need to be aware of it. You need to do well on them. Let's move to the next question. This is going to the fourth question. Okay, so Charming Hawk is still leading the leaderboard. Okay, let's go to the next one, guys. So how many scored questions are there in the verbal section, that is scored means total questions minus experimental questions, how many questions are you really scored on? Is it 36, is it 33, is it 30, or is it 27? Okay, 10 more seconds. And it's a rapid fire quiz, guys. Okay, so I see 18 responses. Great. So happy to see this was a tough one, to be honest. Like, very few people know this because this data is not directly revealed by GMAT, but if you look at the ESRs which are shared by GMAT and you do some basic mathematics, you can actually understand how many questions are scored. So there are 30 scored questions and there are 6 experimental questions. So remember this, that you never know when an experimental question comes, and you cannot differentiate between an experimental and scored question. So you cannot do that. But what we know is 30 questions in verbal are scored out of 36, and 28 questions in quant are scored out of 31. Okay, so that's about this. So let's go to the last question, guys. So let's see what is the next question. Again, let's see. Charming Hawk is still leading the leaderboard. Balanced Hens is third. Space Wallaby is second. Great job, guys. So I'm sure you're having fun. So let's go to the last question then. What is the most common incorrect answer choice type in CR? Okay, is it out of scope? Is it opposite? Is it irrelevant? Or is it might be true? What is the most common incorrect answer choice, guys, in CR? You have 5 more seconds. This is a tough one. Okay, so I still see 15 responses. Okay, so it's like the most, all of you have gone for all different type of options, but out of scope is the correct answer. So again, these are different terminologies that we use. Ma'am, Sunita ma'am is going to take you through these terminologies as we go through the questions in CR. But those of you who have solved a lot of CR questions will know that out of scope is the most common error type on CR questions. This is the most common trap that GMAT sets for you. And if you understand how to avoid out of scope questions, you're done. And that's we're going to tell you how to avoid out of scope questions as well. So great. Let's see who is the winner finally. Charming Hen was leading the leaderboard. Let's see who's the final winner. Okay. So Space Wallaby, great job. You have the third position. Genius Gazelle, the second position. And let's see who is the topper today. Okay, Charming Hawk has maintained the list, maintained the advantage. 4 out of 5 questions correct. That's great, guys. I hope you had a great learning through this fun trivia, a very short trivia we wanted to share with you. And with that, we will invite ma'am. We will start the webinar and quickly we will get to the main objective here. Okay, so a warm welcome, ma'am. Please go
Thank you,
ahead
Piyush.
and.
You have kind of uh, uh, praised me so much that I think now the students will be really all agog that who is she. So once again, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, depending on where you are. Uh, Piyush has already introduced me. My name is Sunita, and I'm the verbal head at GMAT. So today we're going to have a lot of fun, guys. Usually people view CR with a lot of trepidation, a lot of fear, and that is mostly because there isn't one set approach that one follows. The strategy is not always in place, and things get out of hand pretty much soon. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a lot of things. Let me just start sharing my screen. Give me a moment. Mm, just give me a moment. Okay, I hope you guys can see the screen. Can you see the question, guys? So we'll start off straight away with solving this question. And right now, all of you will be solving this question the way you normally solve questions before we get into how to do it. All right. So I'm going to just mute myself for the next 2 minutes while you solve and post your answers. Get going,
And
guys.
and yeah, I think don't post the answers right away, ma'am. I think let's give them
Okay.
1.5 minute. Yeah. So I don't want you guys to be posting the answers so that others are biased. So please solve the question. Keep your answers with yourself,
I
and
think that's
ma'am will give an alert. Yeah, and
Or
then only
I'll tell
post.
you guys when to start posting your answers. Thank you, Piyush, for that reminder. Thank you very much. All right, guys, your 2 minutes are up, and you can start posting your answers in the chat box. Let me see. So, yes, I'm looking forward to the answers, and then we are going to get going with this. So that was one of the questions that we're going to take up today. It was an inference type, as you would have guessed by the question stem. And let me wait for the answers to come in. I think you guys are still debating. I know. That's what we're going to discuss today. Okay, let me just look at some of the answers that have come in. So let me start with the first of them. Just give me a moment. Yes, so Satyabrata says it's E. Rahul says it's C. Deepak E. Shayan says C. Connor E. Snehal E. Pavan Kumar C. Vibhor C. So then Yusuf C, Pavan Manukuri E, Apurva C, Puli C, Mopias is C. So it's between C and E, it seems. Luke C, Gautam C, Ashutosh E. So it's like C, E, C, E, C, E. All right. So now a lot of you might be wondering right now that what those of you mark C, you would be wondering perhaps that what is it that I missed in E? Is E the correct answer? Those of you who marked E would be kind of thinking, okay, was C the answer? Did I miss something? So one of the tricks of solving the inference questions the correct manner is that you read your stimulus properly. A lot of us don't do that. We are in such a hurry in the exam that we just read the sentences as we get them with half-baked understanding, and we move ahead. We think, okay, when we're going to go to the answer choices, we can always come back to the stimulus to check the data and kind of mark the answer choice. It doesn't happen like that, guys. Okay. So let's look at how to solve this question, how we at GMAT Wiz tell you or teach you how to solve this question. And in the process, we're going to talk about a lot of important things. Okay. So, okay, let me just get started with this. All right. So here's how we should analyze the stimulus, guys. And I want you to pay very close attention to how I go about reading this stimulus, okay? A medieval manuscript called L. So in my mind, I mark off two things. Okay, we're talking about a manuscript, and that manuscript is called L. Contains all 18 extant tragedies by the Greek playwright Euripides. Now, let's say I don't know the meaning of extant. Should I now stop there and keep racking my brains? Oh my God, I don't know the meaning of this word. What will happen? No. Look at the data that you do know. So far as we know, GMAT does not really test your vocabulary. It will never throw a word at you in such a manner that you wouldn't be able to solve the question if you did not know the answer of that, the meaning of that word. Okay, so never mind about those words. Extant, by the way, means existing. So right now we're talking about a manuscript, and this manuscript is called L. It contains all of the 18 tragedies by Euripides. Okay, so far, so good. Of these, now this is very important. Of these, that means out of these 18, okay, 10 called the select plays. All right, so I've been given information here about out of these 18, 10 are being bundled off as select plays. Okay, so I kind of start simplifying my information, and this is very important. L contains all 18 existing tragedies. Okay, and then L has 10 select plays. 10 of these 18 are called select plays. These select plays are accompanied by ancient commentaries. Okay, and also appear. So now appear is a verb here. What appear, if I ask myself that question, these select plays, okay, are accompanied by ancient commentaries. So there is one verb here, okay, and then we have these select plays appear in other medieval manuscripts as well. So apart from L, they also appear elsewhere, okay. And then further information about this group. This group again refers to these 10 called select plays. Includes some of Euripides' best known works. So includes It's not that all of Euripides' best works are there in these 10. These 10 includes some of Euripides' best known works, and one of these works is the Medea. So I now can simplify the information in this manner. This is how I have understood. Okay, L contains 10 of these tragedies. They are known as select plays. In L, they are with commentaries. Okay, commentaries are written for each of these select plays. These select plays are also found in other scripts of that time. These select plays include best works of Euripides, and one of the best works is Medea, which is also included in this 10. So this kind of clarity, if you have, okay, and this clarity you will have based on how you've read your passage, will really help you eliminate the incorrect answer choices. Okay, we are going to look at that again. The other 8. Okay, so the other 8, again, we trace back. We were talking about 18 here. We have already identified what 10 of these 18 are, the characteristics. Okay, now we're going to talk about the other 8, which appear only in L. Now, right away, my brain starts ticking. Okay, those 10 appear in others as well, but these 8 appear only in L. They are called alphabeticals. So those 10 are called select plays. These are called alphabeticals. These 8, because they appear in alphabetical order. Okay, so they are called alphabetical because they appear in that order. Without commentary. So what is without commentary? Let me ask myself. I'm relating back the information that I'm breaking and reading. What are without commentary? These 8 which appear in L, and they appear only in L. Very, very important. Okay, they do not have any commentary. So straight away, I can see a lot of differences. These 8 are known as alphabeticals. They have no commentary in L. They are found only in L as compared to, so you can look at the comparison this way. And one of the examples is Electra. One of the examples of the alphabetical is Electra. So this is what I have understood from my passage. This is very, very important. And next comes analyzing the question stem. Which of the following can be reliably concluded on the basis of the statements given? So on the basis of the statements given, I have to identify what can be concluded. Clearly, that indicates that this is an inference question. I have to identify what can be correctly inferred from the passage. All right. Now, a lot of people talk about pre-thinking on inference questions. We, for one, do not really think that it makes sense to pre-think much unless and until something has just popped up in your mind. Because right now you have just a set of facts in this passage here, and there could be multiple inferences that you can draw. So, in such a case, there's no point in wasting time thinking what could be an inference. It could be a combination of data. All right. All I know is when I look at each choice, I'm going to think in my mind, okay, for this choice to be 100% true, for me to be able to conclude this choice with 100% surety, do I have sufficient data in the passage? That's how I'm going to think. All right. So I move forward to the answer choice elimination stage. That is what we call the stage in at GMAT with ACE. All right. So let's see what A says. Hardly anybody, I don't think anybody chose A, so we know straight away that A is not the answer. Not that because nobody chose it, but very simply speaking, A has a lot of red flags. Now, one of the things that we don't do is we don't always try to identify that whether we eliminated the incorrect choice for the right reasons. We're going to talk about this later, what we should do even if we get a question correct. So one of the things that we need to understand here, and you need to identify, is were you able to identify these reasons, which I'm going to bring up while eliminating this answer choice. So A says only, and only is a word which should immediately make those red flags go up in your mind, okay? Only Euripides' best known works are accompanied by ancient commentaries in extant medieval manuscripts. Now, this is the data we have simplified here, right? And based on this, we know that the only word is a big red flag. All right. we don't know whether there are any other manuscripts besides L that have commentary. Okay, we just know that L contains manuscripts. L contains some of the tragedies which have commentaries and some which don't have commentaries. Whether there are other ancient commentaries with other ancient commentaries in the medieval manuscripts, we don't know. And of course, only is a very, very extreme word. So this is a totally out of scope choice and therefore incorrect. Nobody marked this, so we are safe there. Let's look at B. I saw a couple of B's at that point of time. So let me see what B says. The select plays, now we're talking about the select plays, are accompanied by ancient commentaries. Well, immediately I know yes, they are accompanied by ancient commentaries. So far the data is correct. Because, now this is there, when I go back to what I read in the passage, nowhere can I recall that there was a reason mentioned why there were commentaries accompanying the select plays, because they were best known of Euripides' work. No way. We don't know if popularity or was the main reason behind the commentaries accompanying the select plays. So this is also out of scope, and therefore it is not the correct answer choice. Now we come to C. Okay. Now, what does C say? No, now remember, C and E were the two choices which were competing neck to neck, right? So let's see what C says. No commentaries. Now, when we say no commentaries, it's an absolute term. Absolutely none. No commentaries were written about Euripides' Electra in ancient times. Now, notice we are talking about a very broad category. We are talking about no commentaries anywhere. Okay, this choice does not talk only about this medieval manuscript called L. It talks about no commentaries anywhere in any manuscript in ancient times, since it does not specify that we're talking about only L. So if you look at C, no is a very extreme word. You've got to tread very carefully. We know that commentaries about Electra, okay, could have been written elsewhere, okay, even if Electra itself did not appear elsewhere. So we know that Electra, which is an example of the alphabeticals which are found only in L, okay, did not come with a commentary in L, but a commentary alone of Electra could have appeared in other manuscripts, okay. And therefore, this is an exaggeration. What we at GMAT will say, it's a hyperbolic choice. When you say no commentaries were written, no commentaries at all were written about Electra in the ancient times. It is possible that although Electra itself did not appear in any other manuscript, the commentary for Electra could have appeared in the other manuscripts of those times. So C cannot be concluded. Let me quickly see if you guys have any questions related to this. Okay. I don't see any questions so far. So, all right, let me continue with. I hope you guys are able to understand this explanation for C, why C is not the right answer. And let's move to D. D says Euripides' media never appears, never again is another one of those extreme hyperbolic words, in medieval manuscripts unaccompanied by ancient commentary. Now, media has ancient commentary in L, okay, and the passage doesn't say anything about other medieval manuscripts. Once again, we know that never is an extreme word, and therefore this is also not the choice. And again, D was never in the running. Now let's see how E becomes the correct answer choice, because by now E is the only one which is left. Okay. E says Euripides' Electra does not appear accompanied by a commentary in any extant medieval manuscript. Now think about it logically. We know that Electra appeared only in L, and in L there was no commentary with Electra, which means Electra plus the commentary was not there in any other medieval manuscript. Okay, so the select plays differ from the alphabeticals in that they are also found in other medieval manuscripts. So alphabeticals are not found in other medieval manuscripts. By inference, the other 8 are not found in medieval manuscripts, any other medieval manuscripts, which means Electra does not appear. Electra does not appear in other ancient manuscripts. And the only manuscript it does appear in, it is not accompanied by commentary. Therefore, it means in any of the medieval manuscripts, we did not have Electra plus the commentary of Electra. And therefore, E can be inferred. Yes, guys, does that make sense? Okay, let me look at some of your questions. Um, Luke is saying Electra appears only in L as per the passage. Are assumptions allowed? So, Luke, in terms of solving inference questions, okay, we're talking about inference questions. You cannot assume something which is not given. All right, you cannot assume something which would require you to take a leap. So it's clearly given to us that Electra appears only in L, all right? Which means by inference, we can say that Electra does not appear in any other manuscript of the medieval times when you say only in L. And in L, Electra does not have any commentary, which means Electra plus commentary would definitely not be there in any of the medieval manuscripts. Yes, Connor, I think you were talking about choice C not being correct. Absolutely. Electra appears only in L, but the commentary could exist somewhere independently. Perfect. All right. So here, one thing that you would have noticed is I was reading the sentences in a particular manner, I was not reading all the sentences in one long flow. I mean, usually think back on how you normally solve questions. Okay, I have a question here from Puli. Just give me a moment. Puli says there is still a possibility that Electra can appear in medieval manuscript without commentaries, hence incorrect. Uh, so, Puli, if you have marked answer choice E, that means you are giving the explanation for C, right? Yes, Electra Electra cannot appear in medieval manuscripts, Puli. All right. Okay. It's given to us very clearly that Electra appears only in L and not in any other medieval manuscript. We are also given that in L, Electra doesn't have a commentary. So Electra plus commentary definitely cannot appear elsewhere. We can only have the commentary of Electra in some other manuscript. All right, that is a possibility. All right, so coming back to this, reading, the way to read a sentence is very important. If you do not read the sentence correctly, if you just read one long 40-word sentence in one big flow, you will never understand the let's say the precise understanding of the line will never be drawn. Okay, and that brings me to a very, very important point, guys. That brings me to a very important point. Is the recommended path of learning. A lot of students keep asking me that how to start my verbal preparation for GMAT, or what should I start with? Should I start with CR? Should I start with RC? Should I start with SC? All right. And we always recommend that start with SC. At GMAT Wiz, we always start our course. We always make sure that our students start the course from the SC module. Why? It's very important. You start with SC, then graduate to CR, and then move to RC, because in each of these areas, you'll be learning skills which you will require in the subsequent section. For example, right now we have understood that it is very important to understand how to derive the meaning of sentences. And that we teach you extensively in our sentence correction course, all right, in the sentence correction module. And the skill that you learn here, how to derive the intended meaning of a sentence, and then how to relate back that meaning. This you carry forward with you when you move to the CR section. So very, very important that you start your preparation with honing your sentence correction skills. In fact, if you see, we teach you right from the beginning, if you look at our SC Foundation course, we teach you how to contextualize, how to break a sentence and read, how to understand the meaning of those portions. A GMAT Wiz student would know how to and where to break a sentence and read. We teach you about these checkpoints. We have these 4 checkpoints where you break the sentence and you read and understand the meaning of that sentence. You ask questions like what for example, one of the checkpoints is the connectors, and that you break at this point and you ask yourself, what does this connector connect to? How does it relate to the other entity that it is connecting this entity to? And then we teach you how to, you would learn how to contextualize. I mean, if you look at the screen right now, you will see there's this one long, about 55 word long sentence. It's an OG sentence correction sentence, and we teach you where to stop, stop at various checkpoints. Ask yourself, what's the role of this entity here, and how does it relate to the other entities in the sentence? Okay, and that is how we build piece by piece the meaning of the sentence. This is exactly what you need to do for your CR stimulus. You need to make sure that you read your sentences in a manner such that you will be able to derive a very, very precise, crystal clear understanding of the stimulus, so that when you move to the answer choices, you will be able to eliminate them with ease. Okay, it actually cuts short your overall time taken to solve the CR question. So this is a very, very interesting thing that we teach you. A lot of people tell you, we should follow the meaning based approach, but we actually show you how to do that with the help of our methodology. Okay, so drawing this intended meaning of a single sentence, then relating back every subsequent sentence and its meaning to the previous sentence to build the structure of the argument is what you need to do in CR. So we start with SC, that's the recommended path of learning, move to CR, then move to RC. Okay, so we have this is what I was trying to do out there, and now I want you to try this contextualization skill uh, at this next official question. But before that, you can try. I'm just going to quickly post the link here for the free trial where you can actually go and try out for yourself, see for yourself some of the wonderful things that we are doing on our course, and which you can really use to your benefit. So there's the link for free trial. Uh, Piyush has posted that. Thank you, Piyush. And I'm now going to take you to the next question where I want you to try to contextualize like this. You don't bite off the entire sentence in one big bite because you won't be able to chew your words. I want you to divide your sentence into small parts. Right now, you don't know where to break. So just break at one small idea. Let's say 4 or 5 words, take it together, break there, pause there, understand the meaning of that small chunk, move to the next part, understand the meaning, relate back the meaning of the second part to the first, and then move forward. Like that, you will be able to draw a very high level understanding of the stimulus. Okay, so I'll mute myself again. Hold on to your answer choices, guys. Uh, Post your answer choices when I give you the green signal. All right. So let me just mute myself and bring forward that question for you. Here it is, guys. So remember, don't post your answers right now. I'll post it only when I give you the green signal. All right, guys, you can put in your answers now. And let me see what the answers are. I hope you enjoy doing that question, guys. Did you have fun doing that question? Okay, let's see. Let's look at the answers. So let me quickly start right at the beginning. All right, Deepak says C, Shayan says D, Connor says C. He was confused between, so Connor, you were between B and C, but B has out of scope assumptions. Okay, we'll look at that. Ankita says D, Snehal says A. So we have takers for A, D, C so far. Then Gautam, Apurva C, Gautam D. Let me look at, okay, Nikhil A, Puli is, okay, Puli has not given any answer choice right now. Kirti A, Vibhor C, Meister D, Saksham D. So it's A, D, C, and I even have Ravi saying E, Luke saying D, Shobha saying A. All right. Which means there's going to be a lot of hot discussion on this, guys. So, guys, what was it about this question which kind of threw you off? Can you quickly share with me in the chat boxes? Quickly. What, I mean, since we have such varied answer choices, I mean, I can see a lot of it except, okay, Puli, you have put it earlier, is it? Thank you for that. It's Puli has put C. So, so many varied choices, which goes to show that you guys must have had a certain, different, all of you would have thought differently about this particular question. So can you share quickly what was it about this question or the answer choices which troubled you? Very quickly, let's have some feedback from you so that, okay. So Apurva says answer choices were very similar and very small differences. Exactly, Apurva. And that's what we're going to look at right now, how to tide over those small differences in similar answer choices. Connor also says all answer choices are very similar. Well, Connor, for a 700 plus level question, that's exactly what you're going to get. So let me see. Nikhil says relativity. Well, Nikhil, I hope you can expand on that. All right, Dhawal, that would be D. Puli says percentage questions and numbers in answer choices. Okay, Puli. All right. So you need to know that if there are percentages in the question and numbers in the answer choice, what should one do? And if you need to know that, you need to go back to the very basics and understand how the percentages can translate into numbers and how they cannot translate into numbers. Okay. So let me go down to some more of your feedback here. Okay. Luke also says market values and percentages. All those words throw us off. Market values, percentages, assessed value, this value, that value. Everything can be boiled down to something very simple. Only, as I was saying earlier, that you need to learn how to contextualize. And in order to learn how to contextualize, you need to learn how to break. All right. And if you need to learn how to break, then you need to read the sentence in a particular manner. Meister says he was confused with percentages again. All right, what was declining, what wasn't declining? Well, Meister, we will sort that difficulty for you. Aniket says the play is around between percentage and amount. Okay. Nikhil says clear comparison of entities. So it's mostly you guys were thrown off by numbers and percentages. Okay. It's not a Saksham, it's not maths. Okay. Trust me, it's not maths. It's simple language. See, all your mathematical skills will be tested in the quant section. Here, what is being tested, whether is that whether you can understand or derive an understanding from a given set of data. All right. So Nikhil has given us a suggestion actually, ignore the jargon. Well, we are going to do that. I'm going to show you how to do that. So just hold on to your questions for the moment. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me. Because, when I was a CR student, and I remember, I would also get bogged down with these percentages and numbers. And I would just keep thinking about numbers, percentage number. And what I could have done is what I've learned down the years is I could have simplified the data so that I wouldn't even need to think too much about only percentages and only numbers. Okay, so here goes my explanation. Bear with me for a little while. So I'm going to delve again deep into my, what I always rely most on, the method of reading, the way I read a sentence. So here's what I'm going to do. All right. Now, a lot of you would have just read the paragraph quickly, and then perhaps you would have gone back to read it a second time because you could not make sense of it. And some of you might have actually gone back and read it 3 times. And maybe while you were going for the answer choices, you were going back and forth. I'm going to show you why you don't need to do all of that. Just pay attention. So I start reading. I say, okay, total market value of real estate. So I'm just going to do something here for a moment. Okay, let me just, yep. The total market value of real estate. So I tell myself we are talking about market value of property in Altonville has steadily declined over the past few years. So I'm talking about last 4 years. And when the word steadily declined has been given to me, I know that from 4 years, since the last 4 years, the value has been going down. Okay, steadily. Market value. All right. Now, let's say I don't know what is market value. At least I know it's market plus the value. So the market value, or the value for which the real estate is sold on the market, probably. Okay. Let's say I don't know anything more than that. This decline. Which decline? So, okay, so far we know that during the last 4 years, market value of properties has kept going down. I simplify the language in my own words, guys. You don't know how this will help you tremendously. Okay, this decline. So, this decline in the market value of properties has meant that, okay, what has it meant? Overall figure on which the city's property tax is based. All right. So now we are suddenly talking about the figure on which the city's property tax is based. And then there is some additional information in dashes here. Okay. So the assessed value of that real estate. Now I have another value here. So what is this value called? This is the assessed value of property. And it is this assessed value, okay, on which, sorry guys, let me just clean this up. So it is this assessed value on which the city's property tax is based. What does that mean? I'll put that together. It means that the assessed value of properties, which has already gone down, okay, has also declined, is given here. So assessed value has already gone down, and the property tax is calculated on this assessed value. So I'm simplifying information. Okay, once again I'll tell you. So my sentence starts by saying that this decline, that is decline in market value, has meant that, okay, the assessed value of that real estate has also declined. And what is this assessed value? This assessed value is the value on which the property tax is calculated. So let's say if assessed value is X, property tax is a percentage of that X, probably. Okay. All right. Let's read on. So far I have some facts about Altonville. The market value of real estate in Altonville has been going down for the last 4 years. The assessed value of properties, which is probably different from this market value, has also gone down. Even if I don't know what is assessed value, don't worry. And I'm also given that the property tax is calculated on this assessed value. All right. The percentage of assessed value. Now I'm talking about percentage of assessed value. So X percent of the assessed value that was paid as property tax to the city. Now what does this mean? This means that the property tax was a percentage of the assessed value. Okay. So this is telling me that the rate of property tax did not change during this time. The percentage of assessed value is the percent of property tax. This is calculated on the assessed value. This did not change from year to year during this period. All right. So I have it simplified that the rate of property tax did not change during this time. All right. Now, I can choose not to pre-think here and move on to the answer choices, because this is an inference question. It says the information above most strongly supports which of the following. So we are moving from this direction to this direction. Okay. But then since there's a lot of information here and I have simplified it, I'm kind of quickly going through what data I have understood, what data I have got together here. All right. So I'm saying, okay, the market value of properties has gone down. All right. Assessed value has also gone down. Property tax is calculated on this assessed value. So let's say if the assessed value, let's say assessed value is equal to X, and X has been declining in the last 4 years. But property tax, which is a percentage of X, okay, is equal to same in the last 4 years. But since even if percentage is same, okay, the amount on which this percentage is calculated, okay, if that is decreasing, then my net amount will obviously go down. All right. Okay. So I mean, this is very simple. 5% of 10 and 5% of, let's say, 8 and 5% of 6 and 5% of 7. So the outcome will always go on declining if the amount on which my percentage is based goes down. All right. So from what I have read, I can understand two things. One, that the author of the stimulus has drawn a kind of correlation between the market value and assessed value. Okay, the assessed value of the property has gone down with the market value of those properties. This is one inference that I can draw. And the other I can draw is the amount of property tax that would be collected in Altonville must have most likely gone down during the last 4 years. This is what I can understand. All right. So with this simplification, I move to my answer choice, elimination. So let me quickly pop back and see if you guys have any questions here. Okay. Yes, Aniket, the play is between cities' total revenue and revenue from property tax. We'll come to that. So you can see how my analysis is totally based on how I am reading my stimulus. I'm kind of breaking, contextualizing, breaking, contextualizing, breaking, contextualizing. All right, and I'm going to do the same for my answer choices. A says the percentage of Altonville's yearly revenue. All right, now this is talking about yearly revenue that comes from money collected in property taxes. So Altonville's yearly revenue would be coming from many sources. All right. And property tax would be one such source. All right. Now, this choice is telling me that the percentage of yearly revenue that comes from money collected in property tax, that means the percentage of yearly revenue that comes from property tax, did not change over the past 4 years. Now, can I conclude this? Is the data sufficient in my passage, in my stimulus, to tell me that the percentage of revenue that comes from property tax did not change? Unless and until I know about the contribution of other sources of Altonville's revenue and their percentages, I cannot say that the percentage of property tax went down or did not go down. I mean, my sources of revenue can be X and Y and Z, and let's say property tax is one of them. Okay, so let's say that this is the total revenue here. Now, how much of X, what is the percentage of X that makes up total revenue, or Y or Z? Can I say that what anything about them? No, nothing is given in the passage. And about the property tax, I know that the percentage of property tax has not changed, but as a percentage of the total revenue that property tax contributes, I don't know anything about that, and therefore is out of scope. Okay, a lot of you might have been confused by thinking that the percentage, you might have read it like this, guys, that the percentage, let me just clear this a little bit. Give me a moment. You might have read it like this: the percentage of Altonville's yearly revenue. You might have read about property tax and you read did not change. And you might have thought, okay, we have been given did not change from year to year, and this must be the answer. This is what we call not reading. This happens because you haven't understood your stimulus, you haven't read it the right way. Okay, and therefore you have just picked on words and phrases, and you have chosen an answer choice. This could be one of the things that you're doing wrong regularly, and which is why your CR is not improving. Okay, so what you need to do is, okay, need to learn how to read a stimulus. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a moment, what we need to do in order to understand the stimulus better. So A is out. For those of you who marked A, I hope you can see why you were wrong. Okay. This choice is actually saying that of the contribution, the total contribution that is made to the yearly revenue, the contribution made by property tax did not change. And that we cannot say, because it will depend on, it is possible that the other sources of revenue, the percentage of contribution of other sources of revenue went down or went up. Anything could have happened. Let's look at B. What does B say? B says the percentage of Altonville's yearly revenue that comes from money collected from in property tax. So far it is the same. This is same as A, same as in A. Okay, and I've already analyzed. So again, I'm talking about Altonville's total revenue, and again, I'm talking about the contribution made by property tax to that annual revenue. And this time, I'm saying that contribution has declined steadily over the past 4 years. Again, the amount of property tax collected has probably declined, but the contribution, the percentage contribution to the total revenue, whether it has declined, I cannot determine until I have information about other sources of revenue in Altonville. The passage does not give me any information about other sources. Okay, what if the revenue from those other sources has decreased much more than the revenue from property taxes? All right, in that case, the percentage of Altonville's yearly revenue that comes from money, collected in property taxes may have actually increased because the others decreased more. And therefore, this is like a might be true, might not be true kind of situation, and therefore B is not the answer. A lot of times we end up choosing those choices as correct choices, which are just might be true. They don't hold true in all scenarios, and an inference has to be 100% true in all scenarios kind of answer choice. So guys, I hope you can see why B is also not the answer. Okay, and you can see here, I'm not even going towards quant or percentages or numbers right now, although we have frameworks in our courses to deal with that. All right, but here right now you don't need to go that back. All you need to understand is what the choice is saying. The choice is simply saying that the revenue coming from a certain area has declined in terms of percentage. Well, I can't decide on that because I don't know the percentage of other sources of revenue. All right, so let's move to C. A lot of you marked C as the answer. Let's see whether C is the answer or not. C says the amount of revenue. Now, the moment you have the word amount, don't discard the answer choice right away. All right, just because you had percentages, because broadly speaking, if your data is given in percentages, usually the answer can also be derived only in percentages. But here I have been given two things. I have been told that the base value has decreased, okay, although I don't know the exact value, and I have been told that the percentage has remained same. So if the percentage has remained same, but the base value has gone down, then the net amount, the overall amount will have definitely gone down. So I'm not going to just discard this answer because I'm seeing the word amount and my passage is about percentage. Don't be so superficial, okay? Sorry guys for being blunt, but I have my students come and tell me, ma'am, this is what I'm doing and this is what is going wrong, Sanita. So I know the pain points. Okay, so let's never be superficial. Let's always understand the stimulus in such a manner that we are able to eliminate the incorrect answer choice for the right reasons and accept the correct answer choice also for the right reasons. So let's see what C says. The amount of revenue that Altonville collected from the property taxes last year. Okay. So we are talking about last year, all right, was not as high as it was 4 years ago. All right, so let me see what this means. The property tax is calculated on the assessed value of properties, right? Okay, so say assessed value is X, and we know that the rate of property tax has remained same, say 5% of X. All right. So total property tax collected 4 years ago would be assessed value of real estate 4 years ago into property tax percent. All right. And total property tax collected at present would be assessed value of real estate at present into the property tax percentage, and property tax percentage has not changed. So if X has declined, that is the assessed value, then the actual amount of property tax paid must also have declined. All right, that means it would not be as high as it was the last year. It would not be as high as it was 4 years back, and therefore C is definitely the answer. No, this is very important here. As high as this thing. Okay, great. So C is the correct answer. And again, you can see here, a lot of you might have just looked at the word amount and let go of this answer choice, which would have been a very foolish thing to do. Okay, so the takeaway here is we need to learn to read our stimulus very, very carefully. All right. Let's look at D. Some of you did mark D as the answer, and let's see why it is not the answer. Okay. During the past 4 years, so this is talking about the relevant time, the decrease in the assessed value of real estate. Okay, so the passage does talk about the decrease in the assessed value has been proportional to the decrease in the market value. Now we can correlate. All right, we can draw a correlation between the market value and assessed value in terms of market value has decreased and so has the assessed value decreased. But whether the decrease is proportional, that is, the amount of decrease in the market value is proportional or a proportion of the decrease in the assessed value, we cannot really um, uh, infer that. Okay, we cannot say with certainty that the correlation is proportional, and therefore this is a kind of exaggeration. All right, and therefore it's not the correct answer. And finally, we come to E. What does E say? Let's read E carefully, because a lot of you marked E as the answer as well. So it was really between very few of you marked C, A, D, C, E, and so on. So there was a lot of variety, a lot of, it seemed that you were not able to mark the answer choice with some surety here. The total revenue collected from property taxes in Altonville last year. Okay. So again, we have a total amount of property tax. All right. Was significantly lower. So last year, this amount was significantly lower than that collected in the previous year. Now, since we have been given that the assessed value has been steadily declining, so we can definitely say that last year the amount was lower than than that of the previous year. But whether it was significantly lower is again an exaggeration. How, the extent of low, reduction, we don't really have data to measure that. So you can see how one word here, how two words there, and how three words there make all the the difference in the world. And if you are able to tune into those words, you will be able to identify the incorrect choices for the right reasons, guys. All right, so I hope that was good learning, guys. So Riti is asking a question about how to take notes. Riti, most of the time, okay, what I do is during the training phase, I kind of just write down some short forms like I was doing right now, AV and equals to X and 5% of AV and something like that. This is during the training phase. But then eventually you won't really get so much of time to make really lengthy notes. So I would say keep it to the minimum. Just make some symbols and arrows for your understanding, and if possible train yourself to do it mentally. You can actually do it if you understand the passage well. You can do that. Shayan is saying if the assessed value is going down and market value is going down and assessed value is dependent, so Shayan, we are not saying assessed value is dependent on market value. That is an assumption that you're making. They have just been correlated in the sense that market value has declined and we've been told that this decline means that the assessed value has also gone down. So to a certain extent, it may be dependent. All right. Okay, but we can't say that it is proportional. What does proportional means, Shayan? Proportional means that if so much of percentage decrease is there, so much of percentage decrease will be there in the other component as well. But we don't know about that. We know that it is correlated, but whether the correlation is proportional cannot really be said with 100% surety. All right. Have you understood this, Shayan? We know that, let's say, market value has gone down by, let's say, $1,000. Can we say that the assessed value will also have gone down by exactly $1,000? We don't know that. I don't know what is assessed value. I don't know how it is calculated, and therefore I cannot, make assumptions here. Shan, am I clear about it? In fact, Shan brings a very important thing up. That how much of things can you assume? To what extent? Guys, please, keep your understanding very streamlined. So have you seen these horses? They are made to wear those blinders, so that they can only see the path ahead and they don't deviate here and here. So when you're doing the inference questions, stay right on path. All right. Okay, so you're welcome, Shayan. Glad to have helped. In fact, this is one of the things that I love doing, helping students overcome, whatever blocks they are facing in solving questions. So, as I was saying earlier, and one of the things that we told you we would discuss is that what is the right approach? When if you look at the way we solved this question, what did we do here? Okay, we started with understanding the stimulus in the smallest detail, right? We did not miss any word on the stimulus. We made sure that we were able to identify what is given. We correlated the data to with each piece. There were, let's say, there were 7 pieces of data, so we correlated each of them. All right. Kriti, okay. All right. So I got some good feedback. Luke is saying he's got it. We don't have a proportional information. Absolutely, Luke. How to know the whether it's an inference question? Kriti is asking. So Kriti, in fact, good that you asked this, because that's what I'm going to talk about next. The way to recognize an inference question is to pay attention to the question stem. All right. An inference question is one of those questions where we have to make sure that the data that is given in the stimulus is supporting whatever answer choice we choose. We have to draw the conclusion from the given data, in short. All right, that's an inference. So your inference question usually will ask you, okay, which of the following can be concluded from the given information, or which of the following is best supported by the information given above. So you're always moving from the information in the stimulus to the information in the answer choice. Okay, what we at GMAT will call it genus 1 category of questions. So anyways, as I was saying here, it is very, very important that you understand what you're dealing with, what question you're dealing with, and how to solve that. All right. So thank you, Kriti, for asking that question. It brought up a very interesting interesting discussion, which is I'm going to get into. So that brings me to the next point, and that is, what is the correct approach to CR questions? Okay. Now we've seen in the last 2 questions that it is very, very important to analyze the stimulus correctly. Then only we can move to, in questions where we would be required to pre-think, then only we can move to the next few steps and finally move to the answer choice elimination steps. Okay, so how to analyze the stimulus in the most comprehensive manner, this is what you have to learn first before you even start solving difficult CR questions. Okay, you have to learn how to read the sentence, how to understand what is a premise and what is the conclusion. All right, how to break that stimulus into small pieces of information. So um, you would need to understand, okay, these are a set of facts. All right, this is how I identify a fact, this is how I identify a conclusion. This is how I join fact 1, fact 2, fact 3, and then I move to a collection of facts and I put my thoughts together. All right, and this is how I identify that this fact is leading to this conclusion, and this fact is not leading to this conclusion, and so on and so forth. So you need to learn that. Our GMAT with students learn that in our very extensive basics, where we teach you how to identify the premise and conclusion. Here, you can learn how to identify premise and conclusion, how to segregate information, how to relate the pieces of information to each other. Okay, this is a very, very, very important step. And once you learn this, that is how to understand the various components of your passage or your stimulus, it becomes a piece of cake, eliminating the answer choices later on, guys. Okay. Now let me ask you guys a question, which brings me to the next very important thing. What is the most common mistake that you make during the answer choice elimination stage, guys? Okay, what is the most common mistake? Let me have some answers from you. What is the most common mistake that you make, guys? Each of you, I hope, know where you go wrong or what kind of errors you make. Let's say I've heard a lot of my students come and tell me that, okay, I'm able to narrow down my choices to the last two options. Okay. In my webinars also, students say that I'm able to bring it down to the last two, but then I often land up choosing the wrong one. So why do you think you go wrong? What is this most common mistake that you make on the answer choice elimination? Okay, Ankita says it's the incorrect assumption. All right. So, yes, Ankita, missing the keyword, says Kriti. Ankita is saying it is difficult to choose between two answer choices. And when you do land up choosing, and when you choose the incorrect answer choice, what is the usual explanation given for that incorrect answer choice? Apurva says not reading carefully. Puli says eliminating things I did not understand. Good, good. Khushbu says as soon as we see an option good enough, ignore the rest. Okay, that means Khushbu is saying that we form an answer bias. Nabina says missing the keywords. In fact, guys, how has the answer choice that you have chosen, the incorrect answer choice that you have chosen, is usually defined as that this is incorrect because of what? Yes, you definitely are missing the key point and stuff like that. So which means basically you're not able to identify whether your answer choice is falling within the scope of the argument. So often you select out of scope answer choices, you're able to bring it down to the last two, and then invariably you land up choosing the choice which you think matches most with what you have been kind of familiarity. So what is this out of scope answer choice? This is a very frequently used term, but a very less understood term. And what you need to understand in order to get these to mark the answer choices, the correct answer choices with proper reasoning, is to understand what it means when we say out of scope. What is the meaning of out of scope? Out of scope of what? All right, and this is something that you can learn at the GMAT Viz platform. You can learn how to define the scope of different CR question types, and therefore you can also learn how to eliminate the incorrect choice because it is out of scope. So once you learn how to set the scope of questions, then only you can choose what is within that scope and what is not within that scope. Okay, so in that, towards that extent, it is very important to understand what defines the scope of conclusion. For example, in a CR, in an inference question, the scope is defined by the data given in the stimulus. On the other hand, in a strengthen and weaken question, the scope is defined by the answer choices which bring in new information. Okay, so it is very important to learn about the difference in the scope in different kinds of question. What defines the scope? All right, how scope is defined in questions like assumption questions, how the scope is defined in an inference question, and how to set that scope so that you never choose an out of scope answer choice. So this is something that our students learn at the platform. And if you want to understand how to eliminate the incorrect answer choices because it is out of scope, you also need to learn how to identify and define that out of scope, or how to define that scope in the first place. All right, so very, very important. Okay, With that, so I hope Kriti, some of the questions that you guys were saying. So Snehal is saying out of scope is something which has not been talked about. So Snehal, that is true only in inference question. Out of scope is something which has not been talked about in the question stem. But in case of an assumption question, in each of the answer choices, you will get new information. It will not have been talked about in the question stem. So that is not the correct definition of out of scope. All right. So it is very important to learn to identify the scope, and therefore you can eliminate your answer choices by understanding that it is not within the scope that you have identified. So Piyush has put in the link for the free trial. Once again, for those of you who've joined us just a short while back, you can see for yourself how the scope is defined, all right, and how important it becomes for you to be able to solve the CR questions correctly. All right. Prasanna, paucity of time is a big factor, but the only way you can tackle time is to make sure you don't have to repeat. How many times has it been that you have to you reread the stimulus 3 4 times, and then you go to the question, and then you go to the answer choice, and you read the answer choice, and you go back to the stimulus. The method that we are suggesting will eliminate the need for doing that. So with that, let's quickly move to the next question type that we're going to discuss. So how many of y'all face difficulties with bold-faced questions, guys? How many of y'all find it very difficult to attempt a bold-faced question? How many of y'all do that? And why do you find it difficult? Quickly. I would love to hear from you guys. What is it that really puts you in a tizzy when it comes to bold-faced questions? Yes, waiting for your comments. And I'm going to bring up the next question very, very shortly. One of those questions that sometimes like floors you. And that is probably because the way you look at a bold-faced question is very different. All right. So Snehal is saying the choices are very close in a bold-faced question. Well, the choices could be close in the other questions as well, Snehal. What is it that you mean when you say choices are very close? Yes, Gautam. I think that is what Snehal you meant also. That the differences in the answer choices is very subtle. Okay. Um, Apurva says boldface are difficult because he understands the roles, but the answer choices are not easy to understand. They are using alternative words, and they are confusing. Yes, Apurva, absolutely. I can so sympathize with that. And that is one of the things that we need to tackle when we are looking at bold-faced questions. Now, one misconception, I should use the word misconception, students have when solving a bold-faced question is, okay, I have to identify the role of the bold-face, so let me concentrate on understanding the role of the bold-face only. Now, tell me one thing, guys. When you go to watch a movie, okay. Now, let's say you were not watching the movie from the beginning. You just entered, say, 20 30 minutes late into the theater, and you just see two guys are fighting with each other, boxing each other. Would you be able to make out who is the villain and who's the hero? Yes. If you just saw two guys boxing the hell out of each other, sorry for that, would you be able to make out who is the hero and who is the villain, who is the protagonist and who's the antagonist? Will you be able to do that just by barging in the middle of the film and just watching two guys fighting it out? Yes or no? Will you be able to identify who is the protagonist and who is the antagonist? Yes. Will you? And if you won't, why not? What would you need to know in order to identify who's the protagonist and who's the antagonist? Yes. Come on, I'm sure this has happened. This is something that all of you can relate with. That if you entered the movie theater in the, without right in the middle, and you see two guys fighting it out, would you be able to identify who's the villain and who's the protagonist? Snehal says no. All right. Good. So Prasanna says one would need the context. Snehal is saying one would need the background to know. All right. So thank you, Nabina. One cannot. The same thing goes for a bold face. You can't just look at the bold face and think, okay, I'm going to identify the role of the bold face and that will be that. No. You always need to identify the role played by each of the sentences by themselves and vis-a-vis each other. And that's what we are going to do that. All right. That's what we're going to do in the boldface question. I'm going to decode boldface for you. And a lot of the decoding will depend on you having learned how to understand and read a stimulus. Okay. So let's get going. Let me bring up the boldface. Here it is. I'm going to give you the time to solve it. Do not post your answers until I give you the red flag, the green flag. Okay. Just hold on to your answers till then. So get going, guys. All right, guys, you can start putting in your answers. So let's see. It's going to be interesting to see um, what you have selected as the correct answer choice. And we are going to see what could have been done to make that selection easier. So let's see. Riti has put in the answer choice. Riti says it's E. Let's look at the others. I think the answers choices are still going to come in. It looks like okay. Shayan says E. Ankita says D. All right, let's look at the. I'm waiting for some more answers to come in. Apurva believes it's B. Ankita believes it's D. Ravi believes it's E. So far it's between B, D, and E. How about the others? Okay, Kirti believes it's D. Luke believes it's E. Let's see. Again, remember, guys, more than getting the answers correct or incorrect, what is important is for you to know whether you got it right for the right reasons, you eliminated the incorrect choices for the right reasons or not. Because that is the learning, actually, more than anything else. All right, so I've got more answers here. I've got Khushbu saying it's E, Apurva saying B, E, Snehal D, Ravi E, Puli B, Kirti D, Luke E, Nabina E. Okay, so it's E, B, D, E mostly. We don't have any takers for A and C. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to get started, guys. Hang on to your seats. Okay. So as I stated earlier that how you read the stimulus is very, very important. Okay, how you're able to identify the premise, how you're able to identify what is the conclusion, what is the counter premise, all right, what is the intermediate conclusion, and what roles they play with each other. It's very, very important in order to answer a boldface question correctly. So here goes. Let's read the first sentence. Aroka city currently funds its public schools. So we're talking about how Aroka city funds its public schools. All right. Okay. Through taxes on property. All right. So here we are being given some context. All right. A circumstance or some observation or facts are being given here. And I'm deliberately using these words because these are the words that you usually see in a boldface question. So this statement, the first statement here is simply telling us the current situation, all right, in Aroka city. In place of this system, that means funding schools through taxes collected from property. In place of this system, the city plans to introduce, so we are being told about a plan here, to introduce a sales tax of 3% on all retail sales in the city. Okay, so there's a new plan that is being proposed. The idea is to now fund Aroka's public schools from taxes collected on retail sales. And the idea is to introduce a 3% sales tax on the sales. So whatever amount will be collected from this sales tax, that will be used to fund the public schools. Okay, so we have a plan being stated in the place of an older plan. Okay, so far I don't know why this is being stated here. Critics protest. Now I stop here and I tell myself, okay, I have a third party claim here. Okay, a third party conclusion. All right, let me read on. So critics protest. What would they be protesting against? Most likely the plan. They are critics. They would be against the plan. What do they say? Let's see. These critics are saying that 3% of current retail sales falls short of the amount raised for schools by property taxes. So, what the critics are really saying is that the amount that is needed or raised for these schools for the funding, okay, that amount will not be reached by the 3% levy on current sales. So, if I currently take just 3% of the total retail sales, the amount that will be the result will not be enough for the schools. That's what the critics are really saying. So here, the first boldface is a third-party conclusion, and in a way, it's stating a drawback of the new plan. So if I look at the first and the second statements, what is the relationship? The first statement is setting a context, introducing a plan, and the second statement is giving me a third-party opinion of that plan, that the plan probably won't work because there's a certain drawback of the new plan. Okay, see how I am relating back information between the first sentence and the second. And I would never need to come back here and see what is the relationship between these two sentences at all. And you will also notice I'm not paying extra attention to the boldface as such. The critics are correct on this point. Now, who is saying this? Since this sentence is not attributed to anybody, it is the author's point of view. So here we have it that the author is agreeing with the fact stated by the third party. Now, do note that here the author is saying the critics are correct on this point. Which point? Probably the point about 3% of current retail sales falls short. So the author is saying, yes, it does currently fall short, and the critics are right about this. Okay. Does this mean that the author is also agreeing with the protest? Probably not. The author is very specific that the critics are correct on the point only. Okay. Whether the critics are correct or not, we don't know. Let's move forward. So sentence 3 kind of goes in the direction of the critics protest so far. Nevertheless, very important transition word, and again something that you need to learn the importance of, and this is something that you have to learn in detail. So one of the checkpoints that we ask you to stop at is the transition word. So nevertheless tells us that the author is kind of discounting his own point of view that he has put above. Critics are correct on this point, but despite being correct on this point, something, okay, implementing the plan will probably not reduce the money going to Aroka schools. Okay, so the author's opinion is again being put forward here, and in this and this time the author is objecting to the critics' protest. Although the author agrees with the fact, the author does not agree with the protest itself. Author does not believe that the plan will reduce the money going to Aroka school. Now, it's not written anywhere clearly that the critics are saying that the money going to Aruka school will reduce. But we can infer that from statement 2. We can infer that if the current sales falls short of the amount, that means the critics believe that the amount will not be enough for the funding of the Aruka's public schools. So author is objecting to that plan right away here. Now, so we have statements 2, 3, 4 are all conclusions, okay? But we don't know which of these is the main conclusion. We definitely know that the third party conclusion is never the main conclusion. However, 3 also so far doesn't look to be the main conclusion. So 2 and 3 are intermediate conclusions, all right? 4 so far looks to be the main conclusion so far, but there is still more to come. So we are going to wait on that. We do know it is a conclusion, but we don't know right away whether that is the main point that the author is trying to make. Let's read further. Several large retailers. Now, after saying that the plan will not fail, the author is saying something, and likely what we have seen, what we usually find is at times like this, the author tries to support his opinion. So let's see if that is what the author is doing here. Several large retailers have selected Aroka City. So we were talking about sales tax, tax on retail sales. So here we are talking about retailers, okay, connected. Several large retailers have selected Aroka City as a site for huge new stores, and these are certain to draw a large number of shoppers from neighboring municipalities. So this data the author is giving probably to show that perhaps the current retail sales 3% is going to be less, but we can expect the retail sales itself to grow in the future. Okay, so he's saying that a lot of new stores are going to be opened, a lot of shoppers are going to come to Aroka to shop because the neighboring municipalities sales are taxed at rates of 6% and more. So here the author is giving data to support his own conclusion drawn in point 4. So point 4 so far remains the author's main conclusion, supported by the data given in statement 5. All right. Okay, so I have the critics protesting against a plan suggested, author agreeing to a certain point about the critics protest, but going against the critics claim overall, and the author is giving data to support why he's going against the critics. Good. Finally, the last sentence says, therefore. Now we know that therefore is a conclusion marker, all right? So this sentence says, therefore, retail sales in Aruka city are bound to increase substantially. Why? Because a lot of shoppers are going to come to Aruka to shop, large retailers are going to open up their shops. So all in all, the retail sales is going to increase. Why is the author giving this data here? To say that the overall amount raised will not be reduced. That means statement 6 is also being drawn, a conclusion is being drawn in order to support the conclusion in 4. So again, in boldface 2, we have the author's opinion, but this opinion is citing a reason to support the main conclusion, and that is what statement 4 seems to be. Okay, so if I now put things together, statement 1 is more like setting the context. Statement 2 is a third party conclusion. It is acting as a counter premise for the conclusion given in statement 4. 3 is an intermediate conclusion, which is also counter premise actually. All right. It is not going in the direction of the author's main conclusion, which is what statement 4 is so far. That's the main point that the author is trying to make. And the author is giving some premise to support his conclusion, and another intermediate conclusion which is acting as a premise to support the main conclusion in 4. All right. So all in all, I have identified the roles played by each of the statements in the passage. I've identified and watched what direction each of the statements are moving, how they are related to each other. And now it's just a matter of formality for me to identify the relationship between the two bold faces. Okay, the two bold faces clearly here are going in the opposite direction. One is a third party conclusion, it's a counter premise. The other is an intermediate conclusion, which is a premise. In fact, both are intermediate conclusions, but one is a premise and one is the counter premise that I've understood. Okay, so far so good. All right, and this is the way we need to read our boldface questions. In fact, any CR stimulus, you're supposed to identify the relationship between all of the pieces of information to understand a scenario. Okay, so once you've done this, the next step is very simple. Okay, the pre-thinking, as we call on boldface, there is this structure where you identify the role played by each boldface. So here, the first boldface is an intermediate conclusion acting as a counter premise. The second boldface is an intermediate conclusion acting as a premise. The relationship between the two, they go in the opposite direction, and the relationship of each of the bold faces with the main conclusion. So the first bold face goes against the main conclusion, and the second bold face supports the main conclusion. With that, we will move to the answer choice elimination. Okay, so let me just pop in and see if you guys have any queries so far. Not that I can see. All right, let me quickly move to this. So again, as I said, although you might have got this answer right, please see whether you got it right for the right reasons. The idea in this webinar is to learn how to solve the boldface questions. Okay, not just to get one particular boldface question right now. Answer choice elimination is a very, very interesting stage here. And we teach you how to break and read each of these answer choices, okay? All right. So that's what I'm going to show you. The first is a criticism. Now, I wait here and I tell myself, okay, is the first one a criticism? Yes, it is. So this part is true. This part is correct so far. Sustained by the argument. Sustained means it is something that is acknowledged by the argument as true. Okay, so far so good. So the first is a criticism agreed on by the argument of a funding plan. So far it's true. Yes, the first is a criticism. Is the criticism sustained by the argument? Now here there is a question mark. Okay, the criticism itself actually is not sustained by the argument, is it? No. One of the points about the criticism has been sustained by the argument, but not the whole criticism. So I would say this second portion, sustained by the argument, is not really true. All right. So the criticism has not been sustained by the argument. The author objects to that. All right. And therefore, the portion incorrect so far is sustained by the argument. Otherwise, the first is a criticism of a funding of a plan. So I know A is incorrect, but I always make sure I read the rest of the choices quickly. The second is the argument's conclusion. No, the second one is not the argument's conclusion. Okay, it's an intermediate conclusion. When you say the argument's conclusion, you are referring to the main conclusion. Okay, made in favor of adopting an alternate plan. Yes, this part is true, but it is not the argument's main conclusion, and therefore A is incorrect. All right, some of you marked A. So B, the first is a criticism. Yes, it is. The evidence behind which is not disputed by the argument. Absolutely. Okay, the evidence behind the critics' criticism was 3% of current retail sales falls short of the amount raised. And the author does not dispute that. So B so far is correct. Let's read the second part of B. The second is the position. Okay, so let's stop here and ask ourselves, is the second one, can we call the second boldface a position? Yes, position is a term given to any kind of claim or conclusion, and definitely the second boldface is an intermediate conclusion. So we can say it is the position. The argument seeks to establish. Now this part means this is the position that the argument seeks to establish, means this is the main position or the main conclusion. No, the second boldface is not the position, not the main conclusion that the argument is trying to establish in favor of an alternate plan. Therefore, B is also out because of that part, the position the argument seeks to establish. Okay, so see how I'm dividing my answer choice into small parts and identifying whether this part is true or this part is false. It makes life easier instead of reading the entire sentence in one shot. Okay, the first is the criticism, says C, yes, endorsed by the argument. Now, it means the criticism is supported by the argument. No, the criticism is not supported by the argument. Okay, as we discussed in A. Language is different, but the meaning is same. The evidence behind the criticism is supported, but the criticism itself is not supported by the argument. The second is the main reason cited by the argument for its endorsement of the criticism. Well, let's break this. The second is the main reason cited by the argument to support the main conclusion, but not for the endorsement or supporting of the criticism. So C is also out. First is a claim. Can I call the first one a claim? Well, yes, it is. It's a claim of the critics. So it's a claim, yes, that the argument accepts with certain reservations. Well, the author does accept the part about 3% of current retail sales being short. So I can say yes. The first is a claim that the argument accepts with certain reservations. The second presents the argument's conclusion. No, it's not the argument's conclusion. It's not the main conclusion, although it does attack that claim. So T is also out, and by now you know it is choice E. Now let's see whether you have chosen it for the right reasons. The first is an objection. Well, it's a protest, so definitely we can call it an objection. The evidence for which is sustained by the argument. Yes, the evidence behind this objection. What is the evidence? 3% of current retail sales falls short of amount raised. That is the fact. It has been sustained by the argument, means accepted as the argument as correct. The second is a prediction. Can we call it a prediction? Well, the author is talking about what is bound to happen. That means something that is going to happen in the future. So I can call it a prediction if accurate. So if this prediction turns out to be true, undermines, that is, weakens the force of that objection. What is the meaning of the force of that objection? The evidence behind that objection. So it weakens the that objection overall, and that is definitely true. So guys, as you can see, uh, very important how you read your stimulus, how you read your answer choices. So Ankita has asked a very interesting question. Okay, Puli, the main conclusion is nevertheless that statement. That's the main point of the author, that this plan is not going to fail. All right, and in order to support why he's saying the plan won't fail, he's giving you data. Now Ankita asked a very interesting question, which is something that I was going to discuss anyways. Okay, it's very important to identify what is the main conclusion when you have two sentences which look like a conclusion. Okay, here one sentence has therefore, so we know that is a conclusion trigger, and we have another sentence which is also the author's conclusion, and both the sentences are going in the same direction. So how do we know which of them is the main conclusion? Very interesting question, Ankita. So in order to know which one of these is the main conclusion, you need to have some tool to help you identify that. What is that tool? Well, very simple. We always know that the supporting conclusion would be the cause, and the effect would be the main conclusion. Right, Ankita? Right, everybody? So one very simple test that we have, since X, therefore Y test. Okay, yes, Puli, you can do that. Okay, you can identify which of these two conclusions is the cause and which one is the effect. Okay, the one which is the cause becomes your premise, the one which is the effect becomes your conclusion. So here clearly, since the retail sales is bound to increase, therefore implementing the plan will not reduce the amount, right? And therefore we know that nevertheless is the main conclusion. Okay, and in order to know this, you need to understand again the argument structure, how the argument is developed. All right, yes guys. Okay, so now that we have spoken at length about all this, one very important question, okay, um, and that is what I'm going to take up next. All right, before I proceed with the how to master the approach. So far, we have been speaking at length about how to do well on the CR questions. We must read the stimulus properly. We must break the sentences. We must contextualize the sentences. We must learn where to break, learn where to contextualize, learn how to identify the premise and conclusion, all of that. And the next question is therefore how to master this approach. Okay, a lot of people fail, guys, despite learning the approach. A lot of people don't do well when it comes to the exam or even the mocks. Why don't they do well? Because they've just learned the skill. They've just learned the skill, they have not mastered that skill. And if you don't master the skill, you can never excel at that skill. I mean, imagine yourself that you want to learn how to drive a car, okay? Will spending 2 days on learning how to drive the car, okay? So you go to an instructor, the instructor tells you, okay, this is the steering, this is this, you do this, you drive like this, you do this. 2 days you are with the instructor, you have learned the basics, you have learned how to operate everything. Do you think you can you can excel at driving in those 2 days or 3 days or 4 days? No. You will have to practice it consistently. You will have to identify the places where you're going wrong and why you're going wrong, and then only you become a master at that thing, at that skill. All right, you need to know that if you do this, this would be a wrong step to take. If you don't stop at the signal, what will happen? Or if you don't slow down at a certain turn, what will happen? You need to learn all these things, and in order to need to learn these things, you need to really do something which is very, very important, and very few people do that, guys. Okay, so let me ask you a question, guys. When you are practicing, okay, and you're solving questions, okay, let's say you are solving 10 questions and you get 5 correct and 5 incorrect. What do you do after that? You have got 5 correct and 5 incorrect, all right? So do you do anything after that? Do you do any analysis or anything? Do you look at the solutions of those questions? Which question solutions do you look? How do you like, do you look at the uh, do you look at the incorrect answer choices and just look at the explanation and move on? What do you do? Or do you just practice? Guys, let's be honest, let's understand, because there is one reason why people fail to master the approach. I'm going to discuss that reason. Very, very important. Yes. How many of y'all really look at the detailed solution of each and every question that you solve, irrespective of whether you got it right or wrong? Yes. How many of y'all do that? Okay, Shomik, thank you, Shomik, for being honest. Shomik is saying he mainly checks the incorrect questions. Shayan says he sees why he gets something correct and why he gets something incorrect. That's good, Shayan. If you're doing that, that's really good. All right. In fact, to go a step further, it's not enough to see why you are getting something correct. It's important to see that you are noticing all the things that you should notice. Okay, you could be getting something correct because of some thinking which may not be right. All right, you have to match your thinking with the right way of thinking, and that will help you to master the approach. Nabina has also been very honest. Thank you, Nabina. Nabina says that she just practices. Police saying she sees only the two choices that she got down to and then not beyond that. Apurva says he only sees the wrong ones. And that brings me to the point, guys. If you just wait, just analyze the reason behind why you got something wrong, it will never be enough. Okay, you need to, it's a must, you need to see whether your thinking is along the right lines. Okay, Shivani says she just sees what are the main points that she's missing. Well, Shivani, do you see that in the questions that you get correct as well? If you do, very good. If you don't, that could be something that is keeping you back from mastering the approach and excelling. So, guys, a lot of you might have been preparing for quite some time and might be clueless why you are not making any progress. It's simply because you're not doing that which you need to master the approach. And what is that? What you need to do in order to master the approach is to review the solutions thoroughly. Now, how people mostly review solutions is they only review the questions that they have got wrong. Okay, And as you guys have already shared with me so honestly, thank you for that, that you just look at the choices that you have got wrong, or you look at the two close choices, or you don't even look at anything. Now, if you only review the questions that you have got wrong, okay, if you spend time only on option analysis, and it's like thinking that I have got the question wrong because I did not understand the choice. No, in fact, the mistake is made all along that we have been talking. The mistake is made way back. Okay, if you only analyze the options, you will never know why you got that, why you even looked at that option. Okay, all right, very few people analyze anything beyond the options, or even beyond anything, beyond the questions that they've got wrong. And because they don't review the questions that they have got right, because they don't review the entire thing, how to analyze the stimulus, the pre-thinking, everything, there is no improvement on the score. You're stuck. So the importance of reviewing solutions, guys, it's very, very important that you learn to review the solutions correctly. You learn to review the solutions of the questions that you got right, the questions that you got wrong, and to review those solutions properly. Okay, you need to I'll tell you how. I'll let me do something. I want you guys to read this argument. I don't want you to solve the question, just read this stimulus. Okay, just read this stimulus, and then I'm going to bring up something in front of you and ask you a question. I don't want you to solve the question. Let me repeat, I just want you to read this stimulus. Do that. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'm going to mute myself. Just read the stimulus. Okay. Now that you have read the stimulus, okay, here is a detailed solution of the stimulus. Okay, just analyzing the stimulus. Now I want you guys to go through this solution and see if you had been able to draw those two inferences while you were reading the stimulus. Okay, if you did not draw those two inferences, it means you have not been reading the stimulus properly. And this is how you learn whether you are doing the right things when you're solving the CR questions. So this is something that you need to do. Go ahead, check out if you were able to reach that stimulus, and tell me how many of you all were able to infer those two pieces of information when you were reading the the stimulus. Go ahead. Word for word, sentence for sentence, see whether you read it the right way. Okay, our students can understand that whether they are going the right way or not when they look at the detailed solutions that we provide. They can learn to analyze where they are going right, where they are going wrong. And this is very, very important. Okay, this is something that you can learn when you are taking up our course, or if you're taking up our course. Each of the answer choices are written in details so that you can know, you can match your way of analysis, your pre-thinking, your reasons for elimination against the detailed solution that we have given, and you would know where you are going wrong if you are going wrong. And if you're going right, whether you're going right for the right reasons. So it's very important to review the solutions correctly. Yes, how many of you all were able to reach those two inferences, guys? How many of you all were able to infer those two pieces of information when you analyze the stimulus? Let me see. Thank you, Puli. That is the kind of understanding that you need to develop to master the approach. And the GMAT Wiz students can do that with each and every question that they solve on our platform. Okay. So you have video solutions, you have detailed written solutions, whatever you want to check out. Yes, guys. So Puli was able to reach that inference, it seems. What about the others? Navina, Shivani, Apurva, Luke, Shayan, Shomik, Ankita, Aniket, Nabina, Kirti, Ravi. Yes. Were you guys able to reach those two inferences? If not, you definitely need to ensure that you are to understand where you're going wrong. What have you not connected? What have you not understood? Right? So it seems, I mean, from the fact that I haven't got any response, it seems probably a lot of you did not really infer those two pieces of information. And that means that you were not reading the sentence correctly. Snehal says he was able to reach one of them. Khushbu says she was able to infer. Good, Khushbu, for you. Good for you if you were able to do that. So this is how you need to master the approach. Every time you solve a question, you go through the solutions, you review the solutions irrespective of whether you got it right or wrong, and you review the solutions right down from the analysis of the stimulus to the pre-thinking and to the elimination of the answer choice. Match your way of analyzing things to the expert's way of analyzing things and see whether you're doing it the right way. Okay, good, Luke. Good, good. I'm so happy you guys got that. Yes, the second sentence was a little confusing, but if you read it the right way, you'll get it. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing that with me. All right, so that's something that reviewing these solutions in order to help you master the approach. All our solutions are written down in that way, and a GMAT with student can very easily check whether he is going about the CR questions the right way or not. All right, so that is something which is very, very important in order to master the approach. Okay, review the solutions for each and every question that you solve during the practice. It's not the I've seen students practice quantities of questions like 20, 30, 40 questions a day. No, guys, that is not required. You solve 10 questions, but from each of those 10 questions, if you have got one single takeaway, all right, then you've really progressed a lot just by doing those 10 questions. All right. So that was about how to master the approach. You need not just to solve the question, but you need to understand whether you solved it correctly, whether your reasoning was correct, whether your understanding was correct. And that you can do with the help of detailed solutions. Okay. So now let me, here is the last of the questions of today's session. Go ahead, guys, solve this. And there's a very, very interesting announcement coming up at the end of this question. So just stay with me till then. I'm going to mute myself. Okay. Once again, just hold on to your answers. I'll tell you when to post it. Okay. All right, guys, you can start putting your answer choices. We'll be very quick about this. So, hi, Isabella. Nabina is asking, how can we increase our analyzing capacity? So, Nabina, you can increase your analyzing capacity by learning how to analyze it correctly. And that is learning from the scratch. As I said earlier, also, uh, you learn how to read a sentence through the SC module. So, you start by learning how to read a single sentence correctly. All right, how to analyze a single sentence first, and then you move on to analyzing multiple sentences and relating back the meaning of the sentences to each other. Okay, so Apurva says C, Shomik says C, Nitish says B, Luke says C, Khushbu says E. All right, okay, so it's between B, C, and E, it seems so far. Let's quickly go on to the. All right, I've got some more answers. Ravi says B. Okay, cool. So let's see whether it's B, C, or E. Slack says it's B, Sharon says it's C. Okay, so let me just move to. I'm just going to start quickly, be quick about this, guys. So, in Rubaria, okay, so we have the name of a place, all right. Excellent healthcare is available to virtually the entire population. All right, so we're talking about Rubaria has excellent healthcare, and this excellent healthcare is available to the entire population. And then you have a transition word, whereas. Okay, so a contrast is going to come up. Very few people, so hardly anybody in Turland, another place, receive adequate medical care. Okay, so we have been given two contrasting pieces of information here. Okay, Rubaria, okay, I'm going to come back to that later. So Rubaria has excellent healthcare, everybody gets it. Turland has does not have good healthcare, and very few people receive that adequate medical care. All right. So let's see. Yet, so another contrasting word here. Although the death rate for most diseases is higher in Turland, now stands to reason if in Turland very few people receive proper medical care, then it makes sense to say that the death rate for majority of the diseases is high in Turland than in higher in Turland than in Rubaria. All right. Okay. So here Rubaria has excellent healthcare and a lower death rate for most diseases. I can infer this. All right. Turland has inadequate healthcare and a higher death rate for most diseases. All right. By inadequate, what I'm trying to say here is most people don't get adequate healthcare. All right. Let's read on. So there is an although here for this. So that means there's another sentence which is going to contrast with this entire long sentence. What is the contrast? The percentage of male population that dies from prostate cancer is higher in Rubaria than in Turland. Now, that's a contrast here. Okay. So what we are saying is in Rubaria, you have excellent healthcare and almost everybody has access to that healthcare. Good. All right, and therefore makes sense to say that a majority of the people, the death rate for most of the diseases is low in Rubaria. On the other hand, in Turland, most people don't receive adequate health care, and therefore the death rate for most diseases is high. Okay, but there's a problem here. There's one particular disease for which the death rate is higher in Rubaria instead of Turland, and that is probably the paradox. So let's understand that contrast here. Okay, and the question is asking us which of the following, if true, most helps to explain the disparity between the prostate cancer death rate in Turland and Rubaria. So that is what we have already understood, that there is a, like, the unexpected thing that is happening there, the paradox. So let's understand what the paradox is. The death rate for most diseases is higher in Turland, okay, than in Rubaria, but the death rate for prostate cancer in men is lower in Turland than in Rubaria. So the question that arises is, the paradox is, why is the death rate for prostate cancer low in Turland even though most people don't have access to adequate healthcare. It would have made sense to say that even for prostate cancer, the death rate is higher in Thailand than in Ruparia, but no. So we need to identify the reason behind this. We need to find out why it is so. So, in other words, this is the paradox, and we have to explain why the death rate for prostate cancer is lower in Thailand. So, the explanation would be something like this if we are going to look at the pre thinking part. Since we are talking about lower percentage of men dying from prostate cancer in Thailand, it stands to reason that very few people, very few of the men are suffering from it. Like if you, unless and until you suffer from prostate cancer, you cannot die from it, right? So if lower percentage of men are dying from prostate cancer, there must be a fewer number of men suffering from it in the first place. And then the next question that arises is, so why are fewer men suffering from prostate cancer in Thailand? And this is the kind of answer choice we're looking, the scope. Okay, we need to point out a difference regarding prostate cancer between the two countries or the two places. We need to give some data to show, what is different in terms of prostate cancer in Thailand and Ruberia, such that the percentage of deaths from prostate is higher in Ruberia than in Thailand. All right. Okay, so that evidence should also be such that it must indicate that prostate cancer is less likely to be found in Thailand. And with this understanding, we are now going to move forward quickly to the answer choice elimination. All right. A says effective treatment of prostate cancer in its early stages requires medical techniques available in Ruberia but not in Thailand. So the technique required to treat prostate cancer is available in Rubaria. Then it stands to reason that Rubaria should have lower death rate for prostate cancer. So this choice actually increases the paradox, increases the discrepancy, and is therefore not the correct answer. Nobody marked A, so I'm going to move forward quickly. Most men who have prostate cancer are older than the average life expectancy for male inhabitants of Thailand. What does it mean? That let's say the average life expectancy for male inhabitants of Thailand is say 55 years, because hardly, most people don't have adequate healthcare, and we are also told that the death rate is higher for majority of the diseases. All right, so here we are saying that people who have, majority of the men who have prostate cancer, they're much older than this 55 years old. What does that indicate? That tells us something that is different about the males who have prostate cancer in Thailand. That is telling us that something is different about them. Okay, men probably don't live long enough to develop prostate cancer because we are saying they are much older than the average life expectancy. So the ones who do have prostate cancer, they are a segregated few. They are not the average ones who usually die at a certain age limit. So this kind of tells us that this could be a reason why the death rate from prostate cancer is very low. Hardly anybody reaches the age where that person can develop prostate cancer. Therefore, the people dying from prostate cancer, if you don't contract prostate cancer, how are you going to die from it? All right, so people die much before they can even contract prostate cancer. All right, so this kind of lets us understand that why in Thailand you don't have a higher death rate of prostate cancer than in Rubaria. So I'm going to keep B. I'm going to move to C. Being in poor general health does not increase one's risk of developing prostate cancer. This actually tries to imply that the equality of risk is there in both Thailand and Rubaria. That doesn't explain why the death rate is higher in Rubaria and lower in Thailand for prostate cancer. So C is also out. Okay, it kind of says that being in poor general health does not increase the risk. So the risk is like same if you are of good health or not in good health. Okay, D. It is possible to decrease one's risk of getting prostate cancer by eating certain kinds of foods. Such foods are more readily available in Ruberia. That means in Ruberia, the death rate should have been lower. It is not. So this is also not the answer. Okay, Ruberia should have had lower incidence of prostate cancer, but that's the opposite. Let's look at E. Among men in Rubaria, okay, so we're talking about Rubaria, the death rate from prostate cancer is significantly higher for those who do not take full advantage of the healthcare system than for those who do. Now, the interesting thing about E is we're talking only about a comparison between the men in Rubaria, men who take advantage of the system, men who don't take advantage. So this comparison is useless because I need a comparison between men in Turland and men in Rubaria, or prostate cancer situation in Turland or prostate cancer situation in Rubaria, which I'm not getting. So B is the answer. B tells us that in third land, men die way before they can reach an age where they would develop prostate cancer. Hence, people dying of prostate cancer is the numbers or the percentage is very low. Okay. So, guys, I hope this was good. And now comes, I'll quickly make the announcement that I promised you. So the announcement is we are launching our live online GMAT classes from the 6th of February, guys. These classes will cover a period of 3 months. It will be held over a period of 3 months, both quant and verbal classes. Okay. And although the classes will go on for 3 months, you will have access to the course for 6 months. And in those 6 months, if there are other courses that start up, live online courses, you can also attend classes. You can repeat the classes that you have attended with the other batches within that 6 months. All right. So this you will be getting 70 hours of live online classes taken by experts. I will also be taking a lot of your mobile sessions. 100 plus hours of video lessons will be there in the course, and over 3,000 practice questions with detailed solutions, as I have already shown you. All right. All this at a special price of $399, which is 28,990 INR. And as I said earlier, the batch starts on 6th February. So I'm just going to, the link for that particular is there in your chat. You can see that link for live classes and you can access it. Um, so CPA Pro is saying something. When you have excellent healthcare system, people generally live longer. May have higher tendency to develop. So if they, so in the excellent haircare system, you may live longer, all right, but then you have access to excellent healthcare. So even though you live longer, you may not be developing prostate cancer, all right, because you have excellent healthcare facilities. But in if you look at, and this is actually a general problem if you look at it, if you don't have access to healthcare, all right, and you reach an older age, you are more likely to contract diseases at that point of time which are related only to old age. Okay. So I hope that the paradox will always have to explain the discrepancy on both sides. So guys, once again, I'll just remind you, there is a link for the live classes, the live online GMAT classes. We are starting from the 6th of February. And these online classes will cover all the sections on verbal and quant areas. Okay. And we will be offering, this will cover a period of 3 months. Okay. But you will have access to the course for 6 months. That is, even after those 3 months of classes is over. And if you so wish, you can join the classes of other online batches within those 6 months of your course access. Don't worry, Slack. Thank you. If you Slack liked the explanation on the last one, Slack, you can access the, I think, the video recording of this. You will be able to access that also. You'll get it on YouTube. I think if Piyush can provide you with that link, it will be. So, Luke, the timings usually are, if you look at, I think it's usually 1 p.m. GMT. I think it's 1:30 p.m. GMT and 5:30 p.m. GMT usually. Okay, there's the timing there. If you can see that. So 7 p.m. IST and 1:30 p.m. GMT, as I was right. Those are usual timings, and these classes are held over the weekends, that is Saturdays and Sundays. All right. Um, Anything else that you'd like to know about the courses or anything else about your preparation, guys? It was a lot of fun, guys, interacting with you. And I hope you had as much fun as I had. And you learned a lot of things that you probably did not know earlier, or maybe you knew, but you were not really aware of how impactful they are. The things that you need to know in order to improve your CR, to master CR. All right. So, if you have anything else to ask, please go ahead. I'm there for another couple of minutes, after which I'm going to sign off. Okay, I don't see any more questions coming up. So thank you everyone for your kind attention, for your lovely interaction, and hope we meet again soon on some platform or the other.